All right, so this is BA 333, Taxation of Individuals, and this is Chapter 1. So this is your typical introductory chapter, and so here are our learning objectives for this chapter. You can look over those. And so the authors put forth the question, who cares about taxes? Um, in my opinion, everybody should be uh, caring about taxes because they are so prevalent in pretty much uh, all parts of our lives. And so, whether you're an individual or you're a business, um, you have to consider tax consequences of things you do. Uh, Example is my son, a son, my son, back when he was like 13, uh, got his first job as a busboy, waiting, bussing tables. And so, before he got his first paycheck, he was already calculating how many hours he had worked times his hourly wage. And so he expected to get X amount of money, number of hours worked times uh, his hourly wage. Well, what he didn't take into consideration is the fact that gross income is not the same as net income because of mainly taxes. And so he was quite disappointed to find that his actual paycheck was not what he thought it would be. And so I had to sit down and explain to him why that was. And it was a real eye-opener to a 13-year-old. Quite disappointed. Anyway, it's kind of funny at the time. Businesses, even though this is individual income tax, should be concerned or care about taxes because it's so prevalent. The organization form that the business owners decide to create determines how the business is taxed. Where should the business be located? Well, that may determine how much they're taxed also. A state that doesn't have a state income tax, like Washington, I don't think has a state income tax. Maybe they do. I know Texas doesn't. I know South Dakota doesn't. I believe Florida doesn't. So from an overall tax standpoint, if they locate, a business locates in one of those states versus, say, California or maybe Oregon, they could end up paying less in state taxes, overall taxes. How should businesses' acquisitions be structured? Some structures are non-taxable, whereas some acquisitions are taxable. How should businesses compensate employees? Some compensation would be non-taxable if it's deferred. Some fringe benefits are considered non-taxable, whereas wages are taxable. What's the appropriate mix of debt and equity for the business? It might be more advantageous to use more debt because with more debt you can deduct the interest expense off your taxes. Should businesses rent or own its equipment and property? That may change how they structure the arrangement concerning equipment. And last but not least, how should businesses distribute profits to its owners? Because certain ways are non-taxable, certain ways are taxable. Politicians, what do I say about that? They need to have knowledge of taxes in order to determine policy. And of course, you've got basically two parties that have differing views on how businesses and individuals should be taxed. For individuals, many different parts of your life are affected by taxes. And so when you're thinking about such things as owning a home, there are benefits and there are detriments to owning a home. One of the benefits is tax benefits. You get to deduct interest, property taxes, and this can reduce the after-tax costs of owning a home. Would you like to retire, and where would you like to retire? Certain things are tax advantaged and can save you money overall in retirement. As far as where you retire, if you're going to be on a fairly fixed income, you would probably want to live in a state, or I guess a country now, where taxes aren't a burden. So what is a tax? Well, the book says that a tax is a payment required by a government that is unrelated to any specific benefit or service received from the government. Okay, and so government can be federal, state, or local. And so the key components of a tax are that a payment is required and it's imposed by a governmental agency, federal, state, or local. And the main point is that the payment's not tied directly to any benefit received by the taxpayer. And so certainly when you go to a national park and buy admission, that's not a tax because you're receiving a benefit directly. Whereas when you're getting taxed on your income to run the federal government in Washington and other areas, of course, that tax is not being directly, you're not receiving a direct benefit from that. It's just going into the kitty to fund the overall running of the government. All right, so we have a question here: which of the following constitutes a tax?